But here, I think one of the challenges is growing up mixed culture. Chinese people have a very different style of humor to Western people. It's much more literal, right? So sarcasm isn't the thread that runs through Chinese humor. It's like Jackie Chan will slap himself. It's all slapstick and ha ha ha, right? But the subtlety of sarcasm, which is a very strong comedic, narrative that happens in Western style comedy.
This is Andrian.
And this is Ray. Welcome to the Talk Laugh podcast.
Every 2 weeks, we'll invite a new guest and
In every session, we'll dig into their life, relationships, and perspectives.
one question at a time.
Let's talk laugh!
Yay. Welcome to the Talk Laugh podcast. This is Andrian.
And this is Ray.
And we have Ben Quinlan again with us on this second episode. And this time, we're going to talk a bit more about his professional life and how he balanced it with comedy. Because to us, is a very contrasting aspect of life, basically, is something that you basically don't relate management consulting with comedy. But unless you're trying to make fun of your job,
Which he did in episode 1, right? Somewhat the industry, like with some impersonation. Yeah, but I think in this episode, if you guys haven't, checked out, Ben Quinlan's first episode, I think you should definitely do. It's really, we went through some, high level philosophies. Sometimes we touch deeper into, people's perspective. But I think this time is a lot more fun. Yeah, we see the fun, we explore the fun side with you, right? On the stand-up, why are you laughing? Yeah. On stand-up comedy, like your role or your hat that you wear as an performer or entertainer. So you want to just quickly introduce your profile as an entertainer.
Sure. So I started doing stand-up comedy. I did my first gig in 2014, I think, end of 2013, beginning of 2014. I just resigned from Oliver Wyman.
Okay.
And I felt like I had gone mental because I wasn't sleeping, and so I took a long sabbatical and then went to do open mic nights. And then after a few of them, the comedy club owner was quite impressed. He seemed to like the stuff and said, "Why don't you come back and start to perform in the real weekend gigs?" So it all started there. But that was 7 years ago, and since then, comedy has been a lot of fun. Started to do a lot more touring, performed all around the region, all the big comedy clubs around Asia, done some clubs in Europe as well. I won the international comedy competition in Hong Kong back in 2017, and then I've also done a big feature show with Comedy Central for the Stand Up Asia Season 2. Some really fun milestones, and then performing with some of the big international comedians who've gone on their world tours as like the opening act for Russell Howard, Kevin Bridges, a couple of really big names. So I've really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a cool thing to do on the weekends. So yeah,
definitely. It's not something that everyone could do. I don't think you need, as in the briefing that we had, it takes a lot of time to prepare it, right?
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time to craft it, to find it funny. But I was just out of my curiosity. Do you like tailor make it for a different ethnicity? Because I think the jokes really varies, right? For different ethnicity, for Europeans, for people from Hong Kong.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's some humor that I would call universal, right? So the topics and the themes can be universal. There are others that, you want to tailor it for the audience. So even when I tour, I've done Malaysia quite a few times, Singapore. My general rule is when I go to a country, I want the first 10, maybe 15 minutes of my show to be about that local culture, city, whatever it might be. I remember when I did a show in Malaysia, I was like, "Hi everyone, it's really good to be here." And then I go, "No, I mean it. Like, I flew Malaysia Airlines, so it's really good to be here." Right? So simple.
I approve lah. Explanation.
Right. So a lot of it is about trying to connect with people, because comedy is about finding that connection, and it's the purest form of democracy in the whole world. People voting live, real time, with their mouths, right?
That's a very nice way, like interesting way to put it, right? Yeah, I quite like. I can really imagine. Yeah. So hopefully we can drop by your show one day. Yeah, but I think
Where will you have your show actually, or you have it like a few locations?
every other weekend or
Yeah.
in Hong Kong.
It depends. There are like showcases on every other week or every week. I don't perform every week
Yeah.
because my schedule's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But my next big show will be the 12th and 13th of November at a place called Takeout Comedy Club on Elgin Street. Getting close to sold out, but this will be hopefully shows 13 and 14. And if I sell this, I think we've cracked 2,000 tickets sold of
Wow.
my 1 hour special. So, yeah.
In Hong Kong is really special. Like it's because in Hong Kong, I think people don't go out to watch comedy as much. It's not as common
Yeah.
as to like in Europe or in the US.
That's right.
That's why in Hong Kong I think it's quite special.
It's a niche. I would say it's like it's a nice community, right? Because I think that's interesting, right? It's one of the first things that I did in Hong Kong, surprisingly.
To go to a show or
To go to a comedy show, and it was
Right.
specifically takeout comedy.
Right.
And
okay.
it was some. I mean, I'm here being inclusive, but it was a black guy, so you can
Right.
imagine he makes all the African jokes and everything.
Right.
Yeah. So. And why I decided to go there was because I've got to find what's good in Hong Kong, and somehow on TripAdvisor this was one of the top things to do in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Which was why I went for that experience.
Right.
And
So it's
yeah.
that or the peak tram, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
Hard
Exactly.
choice.
And that's why takeout comedy,
Choice.
it sounds a lot more interesting than just
Yeah.
the typical tram. Of course, I did all those stuff, right?
Yeah.
Being a tourist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was like
Yeah,
like-
it's not as institutionalized in Hong Kong as it is in, especially in a market like the US,
Yeah.
right? There's comedy clubs in every single city, even in ass crack towns, they have
Yeah.
comedy shows.
Yeah.
But here, I think one of the challenges is growing up mixed culture. Chinese people have a very different style of humor
Yeah.
to Western people. It's much more literal, right? So sarcasm isn't the thread that runs through Chinese humor. It's like
Yep.
Jackie Chan will slap himself. It's all slapstick and
Oh,
ha ha
yeah.
ha,
Wow.
right? But the subtlety of sarcasm, which is a very strong comedic, narrative that happens in Western style comedy, is different. So that's why some jokes I could tell for a local audience that Westerners may find cute, and then some jokes I tell for a Western audience and locals go
especially on like sax and this kind of stuff. Locals would be like, yeah,
It
but
can
Western people will be like, oh my god,
Yeah.
right, something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think relates back to the culture and all.
I
yeah.
was just thinking, there are actually a few questions. The first one is, which one would you say is the best one that we should recommend anyone to go to as a comedy house? Do you have like a go-to or your favorite?
Oh, well, in Hong Kong, like the two better places that run it, there's Takeout Comedy on Elgin, and then there's Backstage Comedy, which happens in Wan Chai every week, actually. And both of them run great shows. But there's a lot going on. I would say for audience members, just go to comedy.hk and you'll see all the shows in Hong Kong. Every club, every venue, every show.
And then Ben Quinlan is there.
Occasionally,
Every
you'll
day,
see
yeah,
my
yeah.
shiny head there. Yeah.
And then my second question is, how and where do you get your inspirations from? Do you hear stories or is from personal experiences?
Mate, this is the one thing that people think, I'm a comedian, so I just wake up and have this funny life, right? My life is not funnier than
Yeah, it's very
yours.
si-
It's
yeah.
the same. We do the same things. I don't run into hilarious people every day and then tell a story about that. Comedy is just about perspective. So when we do things every single day without realizing it may be funny, or maybe you found something curious or interesting about it, as a comedian, my job is just to take one step to the side and be like, have you ever wondered or looked at something from this angle? And people are like, So that's the idea. You're finding that relatability, but it's the intellectual curiosity. And that's where, like, as a consultant, you're a very intellectually curious person.
Yep.
I apply the same things just in daily life. I'm walking around going, what? So then I write something down. Do you ever notice? Blah, blah, blah. Walking on a hike, then you've got everyone with their earphones, except Chinese people who have earphones that face the other way as a sound system of Chinese opera, right? So there's a lot of things that we see and we observe, but it's how to translate that into a story that people will get.
can definitely feel that it definitely relates to your role, like your thinking, because you're basically trying to think outside of the box in a way, and it echoes with your job, echoes with comedy, is to think of it from a different perspective, which is definitely what consulting requires you to do, instead of just thinking it from a traditional route, or else they can just do it on their own.
And I
right?
think what really, it's not just thinking things from different perspective, right? How you make it witty and funny, that's where the IQ comes in, I believe. Because I think thinking things from different perspective, I think you can, think, but how you time it, how you present that story, I think that's where, your professional career actually helped some ways. Or I would say it's like both ways, right? It helped you craft that storytelling at one point, and I think like comedy also helps you, like what you shared, like
very complimentary.
Read people much better.
Read the room.
It's very obvious when you say a joke and it's not funny.
Yeah.
So I think when you take that context, like something more subtle in business, like people won't like blatantly share their things.
It's not just obvious, it's painful. And you have to know how to deal with it, right? When you start as a new comic and no one laughs and you bomb a joke, it screws up your set. But if you've been doing it a long time...
I think I'm pretty funny, but I'm just not stand-up. It's very different, by the way,
But if you're doing it a long time and you bomb a joke, you can actually use it to your advantage. I love it when one of my jokes bombs because everyone gets outrageously offended. And then I know, because I've been on stage doing it so long, how to make that work for me. And it's scary when you first start because you don't know. You have no idea what you're doing.
I can relate to that, actually. I mean, I'm not a stand-up comedian or anything, but amongst my friends, I think people always have a good time around me. They laugh and everything, but they think I'm super lame.
Like dad joke.
Yeah,
kind of.
very dad.
Okay.
But I was like, oh yeah, I know I'm lame and everything, but then just take it to the advantage. I'm like someone very awkward and everything. I make things awkward, but that sort of plays to who you want to be. I don't know. You can ask Andrian. Yeah, maybe he might disagree.
His jokes bombed.
It's pretty bad.
Bomb all the time, but
and that's what makes you funny eventually.
Yeah,
right?
but people
You're
have
so
a good
bad
time.
that
people have a
it's
good
funny.
Time. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But that's why I'm not a stand-up comedian, because you can't have jokes that are bomb, and then people's like, okay, you really shit.
Well, if those bombs are all a setup to the big final punchline or joke, it might be all right. But it's like I have one joke which takes me, I think, 2 minutes to get to the punchline, and there's just no laughter and awkwardness until it. So it's like you pray this better be a strong punchline, otherwise game over. Yeah.
And no, I was just gonna touch on because you did mention it's because of your career switch and you were having a rough time, right, switching out. And this question would be like, okay, why you wanted to go in comedy, which Andrew start, but I think have asked, but was it because that trigger and then you felt like comedy was a place for you to express and talk about your old bosses or whatever process blatantly, and then somehow people like, oh my god, I think you do it really well. You talk shit about people really well.
I wasn't
and
that
that's really
bitter.
Funny. And then it became like, oh, you win like the top funniest guy in Asia or something in 2017.
Yeah, I didn't go and talk shit about my bosses, so I left them alone. But for me, it was cathartic, but it was also something where you saw Russell Peters, right? Yeah. So I was looking at Russell Peters and I thought he was very funny, and he kind of pioneered that style of comedy because of his Indian dad.
Yeah.
And then that was where I said, but I think my Chinese mum could give your Indian dad a run for his money.
Yeah.
Because my Chinese mum is a winner. And then I look at all the things that she does, and that was how I originally started, just telling true stories about what it was like to have my Chinese mother. And every Chinese person just lost it and said, that's my mom too. Yeah. And I was like, it's all about Chinese mothers, but mine still wins. She's like maximum version of it. She's the crazy rich Asians minus the rich is just crazy Asians.
Okay, that was a good joke. You should learn from Ben.
Hey,
not just from the consulting perspective, also from the joke perspective.
I'm learning. Yeah, I mean, people are always joking on the side. Oh, really? You should do stand-up comedy.
Who said that?
Oh, okay, that's the joke itself. It's just me.
Get it?
People that really wanted to laugh.
No, it's the awkwardness that makes it laugh.
I think it's fine. I'm someone awkward. Like, it's fine if people think I'm awkward. I think that's fine. I think I'm confident enough to know where I stand in society. and if they want to be around me, that's great. Good
Well,
vibes, yeah.
and I think the other thing is like comedy isn't universal, right?
exactly.
There's a lot of people that don't like my comedy. It's normal, but there's a lot of people that do.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I can't make everyone laugh,
Yeah.
and you know what it's like. I'm sure you've seen comedians,
Yeah,
and
of course.
sometimes you're dying with laughter, and sometimes you go, "Oh, I hate
yeah.
this,"
Yeah.
but other people love it.
Or you're like
So-
sitting on the fence. Yeah, I can get why it's funny, but
Yeah,
it doesn't.
you just
yeah,
don't.
it's not doing it for me.
Yeah.
And it's art, right? It's
Yeah.
like when I go look at a painting, especially the abstract stuff, and there's some French person giving me backgrounds, and I go, I don't see it, man, and I don't know why it's worth $1 million, right?
Okay.
But you can keep sitting here and talking about it the
Yeah.
whole night. It's very subjective.
Yeah.
Same thing with comedy. All art is subjective.
I think we want to like jump into sorry for jumping
It's
things,
alright.
right? But then like want to really touch on, because like we're sort of like in the middle of the podcast, but we really want to you really understand, you know, because comedy and what you do in your professional work, or like the professional hat that you're doing as an advisor here and there. Yeah, how do you actually balance and these contrasting profiles? Of course, in this podcast, we have, you know, have this mindset that, okay, we sort of have like linkages, it's all intertwined, but people that look at you, right, probably like, okay, stand-up comedy and your professional life is very different, right? Yeah, so how do you actually balance these kind of profiles, you know, passions? Yeah.
Well, I don't hide them, number one. So I embrace it and I wear it very proudly, because it's part of me. When I did another podcast talking about this, there was a PR agency that spoke to me when I was running Q&A and I first set up, and they said, "Are you sure you want to do your comedy thing? Because we noticed that, and that can detract from your brand of seriousness." And I was like, I think there's enough serious people in this world, right? And if my job or my other skill set, which is trying to make people laugh, will make some people not want to work with me, then I definitely don't want to work with those people. So I'm okay with that. And yeah, I embrace it very much. So if I'm on a business trip, well, let's say I get booked at a comedy club, it'd usually be a Friday, Saturday night in KL or Bangkok, whatever. I would fly in Wednesday. I'll go meet clients. I'd go see contacts, and I'd go, "What you doing on the weekend?" And then I'd bring them to a show. And they'd never work with me again. But no. But no, I would just openly embrace it.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much all of my clients have seen me perform. No love has been lost so far.
I don't think that's something that people should like be disgraced of. I think it's definitely a part of you.
Sure.
That I think people these days, there are a lot of slash right out there, and there are people who have like multiple sides, and I think people actually appreciate this more. You have a few sides. You have like people appreciate you to have different perspective.
Yeah,
I
look,
think
some people don't like it, right?
if they don't like it, they can be out of your life.
Yeah, that's just life.
So
Yeah.
harsh, Adrian.
I-
Get
I-
out of your
I-
life.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
thankfully, I'm still in the life, but
Yeah. I have a question. Have
Yeah.
you ever thought of doing comedy as a career? Because you basically quit all of the linemen.
I'm sure he's thinking about it.
Well,
Right?
no, I mean, I it is a career, right?
Yeah.
It's a job I do
Yeah.
professionally, but like as a full-time career,
Yeah.
no. Why? Because I don't think it will stimulate me enough intellectually. I think it's a very lonely career, extremely lonely. Because if you want to be a full-time professional comic, you usually have to go to the US or the UK. You can't do it here. It's not a big enough market. And you're touring. You're always on the road. And I'm a homebody. I like travel, but for holidays. I don't like traveling all the time for work. I got all of that out of my system when I was a consultant. I hate airports and all of that. It's, ugh. So, you know, no. But, you know, then people go, what if there is like an offer to do a massive show? What if there's an offer to do a movie part? Whatever. I'll take each decision as it comes.
Okay.
And if I need to, let's say, you know, I was asked, do I want to go do an arena show in Singapore? So that was just recently asked this week. I said no because of the COVID restrictions. And I don't want to do quarantine just to go do one show. But if I can book out 5,000 seat arenas on a regular basis, I don't know. I don't know. But generally, the answer is no at this point. Yeah.
I mean, I think at least I think what we've taken away from you is very principled in what you do, right? So you kind of know like what you wanted to do, and based on, sorry, I was being a bit distracted. So based on that, it's sort of like a clear out like what your next steps are and everything. Yeah. So I think I just wanted to ask, like, okay, when you do actually introduce yourself to someone, how do you let's say, like, okay, you don't know the context of them, like it's first time meeting them, like how would you introduce, like which
Say, hey, I'm Benjamin Quinlan.
I know, but then like when they ask what do you do, and then will you give like that whole 1 minute thing, or like there's like a preference of you like, I'm a stand-up comedian.
Well, like if they're at a comedy show,
oh yeah, for sure,
and they go, what do you do? I'd be like, you just saw it. So it's all relative. Like I was at a networking event last night for the Australian Chamber of Commerce. I haven't met a lot of people there, but I usually just say I run my own consultancy and I do a bunch of other things on the side. Yeah. I mean, I'm not there to elevator pitch and give people a 7-hour introduction. I think it's boring as hell. But yeah, it's just at the end of it, 95% of my time and effort is Quinlan and Associates.
Yeah. So I think, so deep down inside is really more on that the business side of things that you would relate, because I think if you look at time spent on how you break down your life, right? Stand-up comedian is something that adds that personal touch to who you are, but fundamentally I think who you stand for is like building this team and an environment to beat up like the traditional consulting, the way that consulting is done. So I think that would fulfill in terms of like who you really are, the mission that you stand for. Probably, like if I'm reading it correctly, probably that side of thing, right?
Yeah. That's what wakes me up every day, right?
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Plus sunlight, but that's what wakes me up.
Okay. Cool.
So that's basically what I want to ask.
Oh,
Do you have anything you want to ask more?
Oh yeah. So I think. But I think you've already answered that. Like what's next, the plans for the future. Yeah. So.
Future is just to continue to do my shows, provided they can get booked out. I want to keep writing. I mean, for me, what I realized is because I've been so busy this past few years, comedy has taken a bit of a back seat. Yeah. So I really want to reprioritize the journey of writing new material, because there's so much going on. I can write endlessly about Zoom, about new work from home arrangements, around everything that's happening as a result of COVID. But just having the time to sit down and do it, don't have much. So that's the unfortunate thing. And even as a comic, when you say, do you just write new jokes every time you go on stage? We were talking about that before. No, but I feel like I get bored of my old jokes and I want to tell some new things. And especially for an audience member, you always feel this really weird pressure. You could go to a room, you'll see 100 people, and there'll just be one repeat customer, but you'll be like, oh no, they're gonna hear it. But for 99 people, they go, just do your thing. Like, we just want to hear whatever it is you say. But every comic feels that kind of pressure. You do want to give people a new good experience every single time.
Would they know, like, let's say they're gonna go to your show and they've went to your show before? Would they know like what kind of jokes? Like, is there like a topic that you will?
Is there something I'm known for?
Yeah.
I mean, there's themes that my comedy revolves around, but it's evolved a lot as well. So they know my style, they know my delivery style, but the actual content of the joke,
it's always going to be a surprise, right?
I hope so. I mean, some things they'll go, I remember that's one of a classic joke that Ben does. And then others, it's like, okay, this is his new stuff. So it's always interesting to try it out, right? That's very important to grow as a comic. There's so much stuff that I have written. It's just on my phone. I can show you like comedy notes. Okay. You'll be like, what does all this mean? And I guess like jumbled thoughts and words. But then when you revisit, you go, I know exactly why I wrote that down at that time, because there's some bit that I want to develop around it. Because that's the curious part that sparks in your mind, right? So many things that I want to write about. Yeah.
we are looking forward to your next comedy show. We're just gonna go on that website and see if we can get tickets soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Hope to see you guys there.
And yeah, I think
That
that's
would
about
be
it,
the
right? Yeah.
that would be the wrap on the second episode. We won't take much more of the time, and really thank you for Benjamin Quinlan for being in our episode. We've learned so much personally, and hope you guys as well. And stay tuned for more episode. And yeah,
I just wanted to end on a note that, okay, if you found this thing helpful, 20, 30 minutes of time is a lot, but if you found it useful, probably someone else will find it useful. So it'll be a good use of, Ben's time, our time, and of course your time, right? If you can share it to a broader audience. Yeah.
Yep.
So hopefully more and more people benefit from this kind of casual podcast, with, really, really meaningful perspectives.
Very good. And for those of you who are listening in Hong Kong, do have a look at zicket.com and Take Out Comedy. Keep your eye on the 12th and 13th of November for the next show if you want to go and watch something live and have a laugh for an evening.
All right.
we're gonna be there. All right, see you.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.